Imagine a state of absolute peace, where all your worries, fears, and struggles disappear. A place where you are completely free from all the burdens of life. That's nirvana, the ultimate goal in Buddhism. What is nirvana? Nirvana is a special term used in various spiritual traditions, but it is most commonly known in Buddhism. It represents the highest state a person can reach, a state of complete freedom from suffering and rebirth. In simpler terms, it's the point where you escape the endless cycle of pain and life's ups and downs. The word nirvana comes from the ancient language of Sanskrit, where it means extinction or disappearance. But what exactly is being extinguished here? It's the sense of self, the ego. All the desires, attachments, and false identities that cause suffering simply fade away. In Buddhism, nirvana is seen as the ultimate goal. It's the place where you are no longer tied down by the struggles of life, where you rise above everything that causes pain, and find a state of complete calm and freedom. For Buddhists, reaching nirvana is the way to break free from the cycle of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, and finally achieve lasting peace. The concept of nirvana in Buddhism. In Buddhism, the journey to nirvana begins with understanding the core teachings. One of the most important lessons is the Four Noble Truths. These are like a roadmap for how to deal with suffering and ultimately reach nirvana. Buddhism's path to enlightenment. The Four Noble Truths explain the reality of suffering and how to overcome it. The truth of suffering, dukkha. Life, in its essence, involves suffering. We experience pain, disappointment, and loss throughout our lives. The cause of suffering, samudaya. Suffering is caused by desire and attachment. We want things to be a certain way, and when they aren't, we suffer. The end of suffering, nirodha. This is where nirvana comes in. The third noble truth teaches us that suffering can end. By letting go of our desires and attachments, we can break free from the cycle of suffering. This is where nirvana is found, when the cause of suffering is gone. The path to end suffering, magga. The fourth noble truth shows us how to end suffering. It's called the Eightfold Path, and it's the way Buddhists follow to reach enlightenment and eventually nirvana. Samsara versus nirvana. Another key idea in Buddhism is samsara, which is the cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. Samsara is seen as a never-ending loop where suffering repeats itself over and over. In samsara, we're constantly chasing after desires, feeling unsatisfied, and dealing with the pain of life. Nirvana is the exact opposite of samsara. While samsara traps us in a cycle of suffering, nirvana is the escape. It's a state of complete peace and liberation where we are no longer pulled down by the struggles of life. In nirvana, we are free from the need to be reborn and can finally rest in a state of calm, free from suffering forever. The fires to extinguish: greed, hatred, and ignorance. In Buddhism, there are three powerful forces that keep us stuck in the cycle of suffering and rebirth. These forces are known as the three poisons or the three fires. They are raga, greed, desire. This refers to our constant craving for more. We desire material things, success, or emotional satisfaction, always wanting to hold on to things that bring us pleasure. But the problem is these desires are never fully satisfied, and this leaves us feeling empty and unfulfilled. Dvesha, hatred, aversion. Hatred or aversion is the feeling of rejecting or pushing away things we don't like. Whether it's people, situations, or feelings, this fire makes us react negatively to the world around us, causing anger and resentment. Moha, ignorance, delusion. Ignorance in Buddhism means being unaware of the true nature of life. This is the failure to understand the impermanent and interconnected nature of the world, which leads to confusion and keeps us trapped in the illusion of the ego. These three poisons are like fires burning within us, fueling our suffering. To reach nirvana, a person must extinguish these fires. It's not easy, but through the practice of mindfulness, meditation, and following the Eightfold Path, one can gradually free themselves from greed, hatred, and ignorance. When these afflictions are gone, the cycle of rebirth ends, and nirvana is reached. What happens when you reach nirvana? Transformation of consciousness. When someone reaches nirvana, their consciousness is completely transformed. It's like waking up from a dream, where all the things that once seemed so important, material desires, ego, and personal attachments, no longer hold any power. The mind becomes clear and free from the constant push and pull of desires and emotions. In this state, the person is no longer affected by greed, hatred, or delusion. Their mind is at peace, and they experience what Buddhists describe as profound spiritual joy and clarity. It's not a temporary feeling of happiness, but a deep and lasting sense of inner calm and contentment. A state of peace and joy. Buddhists describe nirvana as state of complete peace. In this state, the mind is free from all negative emotions like fear, anxiety, doubt, or anger. Instead, it is filled with compassion, wisdom, and understanding. The person becomes deeply connected with the world, not in a material way, but in a spiritual sense, where they see the truth of existence beyond the ego. This state of enlightenment brings about a sense of spiritual joy that cannot be found in material things. It is a joy that comes from being free from suffering and fully aware of the true nature of life. In this way, nirvana is seen as the ultimate goal, a place of lasting peace and happiness that exists within us once we let go of everything that binds us to the world of suffering. The role of non-self, anatta, understanding non-self. One of the most important and unique teachings in Buddhism is the concept of anatta, or non-self. In many spiritual traditions, people believe in the existence of a permanent self or soul that defines who they are. But Buddhism teaches something different. It says that there is no permanent, unchanging self. In anatta, the idea of self is an illusion. We often think of ourselves as separate from the world around us, as individuals who have our own identities, desires, and egos. But in truth, everything is constantly changing. Our thoughts, feelings, and even our bodies are in a state of constant flux. This illusion of a permanent self is one of the root causes of suffering. We cling to this false sense of identity, and that creates desires, attachments, and fears. The more we hold on to this illusion, the more we suffer. To achieve true liberation, we must see through this illusion. When we understand that there is no permanent self, we can begin to let go of our attachments and desires. In doing so, we move closer to nirvana, the state of complete freedom. Nirvana means being free from ego, free from the constant need to protect, satisfy, or define the self. It is a state of true peace, where the burden of clinging to an identity no longer weighs us down. Nirvana as a psychological and ethical reality. Practical aspects of nirvana. Nirvana is often thought of as a mystical or otherworldly state, but it's also a very practical one. In Buddhism, nirvana isn't just a metaphysical concept, it's a psychological and ethical reality that can be experienced in everyday life. When someone reaches nirvana, their mind undergoes a profound transformation. It's not just about reaching a state of enlightenment, it's about living with compassion, peace, and a deep sense of awareness. People who achieve nirvana are free from the negative emotions that typically dominate our lives. Things like fear, worry, doubt, and anger no longer have any hold over them. A mind free from suffering. In this state, the mind is incredibly refined and clear. It's free from the usual distractions and afflictions that come with human life. Instead of being caught up in negative mental states, the enlightened mind is filled with love, understanding, and kindness. This is why people who have reached nirvana often show great compassion and wisdom in everything they do. Because nirvana is a state of inner peace, it changes the way a person interacts with the world. An enlightened person sees things as they truly are, without being influenced by personal desires or attachments. They live ethically, guided by a deep sense of responsibility toward others, without expecting anything in return. In essence, nirvana is a state where one's mental and emotional life becomes balanced, no longer swayed by the turmoil of desires, anger, or confusion. It is not just a distant, unattainable goal, it's a real and present experience of complete freedom and clarity. How to reach Nirvana Buddhist path to enlightenment. In Buddhism, the journey to nirvana is guided by a set of principles known as the Eightfold Path. This path serves as the practical steps that help eliminate suffering and lead to enlightenment. Each step plays an important role in bringing a person closer to nirvana by promoting ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. Let's break down the eightfold path. Right understanding. This is the foundation of the path. It means seeing the world as it truly is, understanding the nature of suffering, and recognizing that everything is interconnected. Right thought. This involves cultivating thoughts that are free from ill will, hatred, and harmful desires. It's about focusing on kindness, compassion, and selflessness. Right speech. Speaking truthfully, avoiding harmful language, gossip, and lies. It encourages speaking in a way that uplifts others. Right action. Acting ethically by avoiding harm to others and practicing kindness and compassion in daily actions. This means living a life that doesn't involve violence, theft, or exploitation. Right livelihood. Choosing a way of living that does not cause harm to others. This can mean avoiding professions that involve violence or exploitation and instead engaging in work that promotes peace and goodwill. Right effort. Putting in the effort to develop positive qualities like kindness, mindfulness, and wisdom, while letting go of negative habits like anger, jealousy, and greed. Right mindfulness. Being fully aware of the present moment, paying attention to thoughts, feelings, and actions without getting carried away by them. Mindfulness is a key part of meditation and helps bring clarity and peace to the mind. Right concentration. Focusing the mind deeply through meditation, which helps eliminate distractions and develops a peaceful, calm state of mind. The Eightfold Path teaches that mindfulness and meditation are crucial practices in everyday life. Common misconceptions about nirvana. Is nirvana annihilation? A common misconception about nirvana is that it means the destruction of the self or that it's some kind of void or emptiness. This misunderstanding might come from the idea that nirvana involves the extinguishing of certain aspects of life. But nirvana is not about annihilation. It's not the end of existence, but rather the extinguishing of desires, attachments, and ego. In Buddhism, nirvana is a state where a person is free from suffering because they no longer cling to desires or a sense of self. This doesn't mean that the person disappears or stops existing. Instead, it means they live without being attached to material things or ego. Their consciousness is no longer tied to the cycle of samsara, but they still exist in a state of peace and clarity. Rather than being a void or a state of non-existence, nirvana is described as a state of liberation, a release from the endless cycle of suffering and rebirth. Nirvana, in modern context. Nirvana in everyday life in modern times, the concept of nirvana has taken on new meanings beyond its traditional Buddhist roots. Often, people refer to nirvana when they talk about a state of ultimate peace or happiness. For example, some may describe moments of extreme bliss, relaxation, or even personal achievement as a form of nirvana, even if they are not practicing Buddhists. Non-Buddhists might use the term nirvana loosely to describe feelings of inner tranquility or moments when life feels perfect, free from stress and worries. While this usage is more casual, it still reflects the deeper meaning of nirvana as a state of peace and freedom from life's struggles. Nirvana as a psychological goal. Even outside the religious context, nirvana can be seen as a psychological goal. People who practice mindfulness or meditation often talk about reaching a state of inner peace or mental clarity that resembles the Buddhist idea of nirvana. The idea of letting go of attachments, reducing stress, and finding mental balance can be seen as a form of everyday nirvana that anyone can strive for. Conclusion: nirvana as the ultimate goal. Nirvana is the ultimate goal in Buddhism, where suffering ends and peace begins. It's not just a concept, but a state of complete freedom from desire and attachment. By following the Eightfold Path and letting go of the ego, anyone can move closer to this state of inner peace. Though it may seem distant, nirvana teaches us that true liberation is within reach. It's about transforming how we live, embracing mindfulness, and finding peace in the present moment. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment what nirvana means to you, Have you reached it already? My friend, please like this video and subscribe for more content on Buddhism and self-growth. Namaste.